So,
okay,
who are you?
Who am I? So I spent the last 20 years working alongside the health and safety profession. It's been bizarre and random, but like a really fulfilling career. So I started off in recruitment, and then I think probably in my kind of voyage to find something that wasn't recruitment, I started to identify a bit of a gap in the market, a need for safety professionals to focus on their broader development, so their kind of non-technical development. And so if you can't see it, build it. I built a company over the last 10 years that did that. So we raised the profile of non-technical development, which I think is very mainstream and people talk about all the time. But we also created a development pathway in which people could really have the space and the opportunity to develop critical skills and thinking, and also just reflect and think about their role in the change they wanted to create. So yeah, that's what I do. And then alongside that, because I left the business that I built this time last year, or just over this time last year, and I now get to do a variety of different things, like from individual coaching through to team facilitation, development work, and then facilitate great events like this, which is community's always been really important to me, like having people together, sharing, learning, challenging, and creating environments in which people feel safe to do that. So yeah, this is a real sweet spot of what I get to do.
I think it's really weird that we could come into industries like safety, and there is this undeniable, huge amount of skill set, right? So we work with some of the same people, and incredibly talented, incredibly knowledgeable, and then there's sort of a gap. And I think that we've kind of taken that approach of like, oh, cool, we could come in and we could help with this side of things, and that seems to have been in very different directions, but kind of where you came into it as well. And we met in 2019 in Lisbon.
Gosh. Yes, I remember that, heavily pregnant and like waddling around.
I remember you waddling, but waddling. Yeah, I mean, what I remember most from that event was that you had sustainable banners. Yeah. Yes, you had the bases were cardboard, and I will remember that forever. That they were
next door to each other in the kind of hall. Yeah,
yeah, and we'd shipped out this huge metal monstrosity. And they put us next to the person with sustainable banners. And I was like, that's awful. You're making us look terrible.
It's funny what like sticks in your brain, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it was like everyone else across the whole thing was also using kind of, that.
I am that virtuous.
You came with these banners that I'd never even heard of. And to be honest, I haven't seen since, which is because it's really interesting.
I'd like to say they are very sustainable, but also single use, because it all just crumbles, especially after you've taken it halfway across the world. So yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine they did well wet. No. So
flights and stuff. Yeah. So, our intent was good. Yeah. Maybe the product didn't deliver.
It was good. No, I was very impressed with that. Obviously, it's stuck with me 6 years later. Still remember that you had these sustainable banners. But we seem to kind of cross paths with a lot of people. And I think that it's really interesting. This industry seems to be from the outside, it's very different to what it's like from the inside. And so coming to like the drinks tonight, and I was just saying to Tom, who's working with us, that it's really weird to be standing in amongst people at the top of their field. This is not kind of just anyone. These are people who are at the top of their field, brands that are internationally recognizable, and I consider them my friends. I don't think of them as clients or leads or any of those. These are my friends, and I love the UK events, especially because I've had that chance to build those relationships in there. And to going to America now, I'm hoping that's what we'll be doing. And we've got Europe at the end of the year. But you have been pretty integral to those events for the last So it was, well, 3-4 years, at least in my knowledge. Yeah. So when did you, apart from coming as an exhibitor, when did you start getting involved in the way that you do now?
Well, a couple of years. So when I decided to kind of step away, the joy of Paul Clark is that he will always like allow you to pick up the phone and be like, this is what I'm doing now. And if there is an opportunity to kind of help, he will do that. Like, it's the absolute joy of him. And I just said, I'm going out on my own. I'm going to do my own thing. I want a different kind of work in my life. I spent so much time looking at like spreadsheets and hiring plans and board reporting that actually I got away from the work that I really love, like feeling connected. So we just felt there was a place between the event and him and Katie and the team are brilliant at running events. And actually, what did we need to deliver to this community?
Yeah.
And how could I be that kind of point of connection, that conduit between the two, where I take, and the joy of my work, like yours, is you cover like a real breadth of businesses. So I can be with a large construction company, then into an FMCG, then into a tech company, then into a but they've all got the same challenges. So many of them, it's the same thing coming up time and time again. But how do I really pull all of those threads from all of those groups and say, how do we deliver them something that really gets them thinking differently, that informs them, that inspires them, but also challenges them? And I think my inner rebel loves that point at which we kind of can play with a little bit of challenge. It's like, here's some stuff that's interesting and good, but like, what's the stuff that's going to get you really thinking? Like, not 10 minutes later, not 1 hour later, but like, you're going to carry that into your work. And that gives me a creative place to kind of play and to use my network to think about who they're listening to, who they're talking to, who they're curious about, and then bringing that all together. So
you started, I suppose, the combination of all of that is Aunty Treacle. Yeah. So you and Stuart, hopefully Stuart, when this was released, Stuart will have sat in this chair and also spoken, but obviously at this point we don't know what he's going to say. Yeah. But you started that, and I saw you do a kind of a live session version of that, and you do the podcast in Birmingham. I can't even think what the event was called, but there was, you were there alongside a lot of other things. And it was really interesting to see the engagement. I think that was the really key thing for me, was what you're asking. It was very easy for no one to respond. And I think what's really amazing is that the community are engaging with what you're doing. And it's very early, though. So tell me a little bit about Aunty Treacle and how that came about.
Okay, so every year, and I do work with a coach, I kind of set a mantra for the year. So like year one of going out on my own was good work with good people that makes a difference. And year two was way less catchy and kind of like a thing, but it was actually about like sharing and accessibility. And I feel a huge privilege over the last 10 years that I've worked with some like phenomenal people who are so generous in like sharing.
Yeah.
But it felt like unless you were in an organization that was willing to invest in your development, or if you were able to access coaching, or it just felt like not the wrong people, but not everyone was able to access that. Yeah. And that was the thing that I kind of played with through late stages of last year. How do I make what I do? Because I have this breadth of experience and exposure. Like, how do I make that accessible to others? And how do we do that in a way that feels really light? Like, it doesn't have to be serious. And I've still got the text message that I said to Ruth Denyer at Netflix, stood on a train station when I first went out on my own and was like, imagine if there was an agony aunt column. Imagine if you could just write to me and I could, like, here's what feels difficult. And I would go and ask all these people that I know and would come back with solutions. And that was kind of where the podcast came from. And if I'm honest, because of my own crippling self-doubt and a lot of things that I've worked on over the last 12 months, I didn't want to do it alone. I wanted to do it. I feel like having someone to bounce off is really lovely. And I've had the privilege of coaching Stuart and knowing Stuart for a long time. And he is my biggest cheerleader and my most candid critic. Yeah. And I think there's very few people that I could kind of trust to go through that journey with. And his intent, like mine, was always about kind of making it.
Yeah.
How do we make all this great stuff accessible in a way that is like not dry, not dull, but hopefully in a way that it really helps.
I think it's creative types, isn't it? I think creative mindsets are kind of interesting. You talk a lot about curiosity, and that's sort of what you ask of everyone in these events, and I guess you probably ask in your other sessions with everyone as well. And I think we feel really similarly about that. I think it's we always ask, could it be better? Could we think of it differently? Could we? And so whenever I've looked through my career, has kind of moved through management and education and training, and there was always a creative stem to it that then turned into creative. And it was like, well, how do I marry these two things together? Came to the event in 2019 expecting a lot of people wanting to tick boxes and probably a pointless event. Fell in love with the industry and everyone in it. And there's so many people who have that curiosity and really want it to be better, but not because they're trying to tick that box. And I think that was the key thing for me, was that they actually did want to make sure people go home safely. Like the amount of empathy and care, and in an industry that from the outside is completely lacking that narrative, internally that narrative is so strong. And seeing you talk at the events, and you're not pushing that is just 90%. I mean, we can't say everyone, obviously. There's obviously lots of people who don't think that way, but 90% of the audience is doing that. You're not introducing them to something new. They do care. They want difference. They want change. They want to do things better. And you sort of, in these events, everyone knows you. Really, this has been the way you've embedded yourself in this industry is great. I mean, it's fantastic, and I think this community is fantastic, and it's nice to be part of it rather than supplying to it.
As I said, like, it feels like friendship. Like, it feels like you get together and you're like, I love hanging out. Like, you're interesting, you're fascinating, you're doing brilliant work. I think, and I mentioned it a moment ago, like, my inner critic is like my biggest downfall, but also my superpower. In doubting myself, I'll seek other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
So I've always had this kind of curiosity of like, what do other people think? Like, what's their perspective? And I think when you invite people into a problem, when you say, I'm seeing this thing, like, do you also see that? How do you see it? Like, talk to me about your perspective on it. It gets people engaged. And the work I do is so deeply personal. Like, when I get to coach people, like, we're not like faffing around with like superficial stuff. We're like all in. Like, what are your patterns of beliefs? Like, who are you? How are you showing up? How do I support you to achieve what you want to achieve, whatever that looks like? So I think the combination of just always being curious with this group about what do you need? How can I support? And when I went out on my own, that was the first thing I did. I didn't build a business. I just spent time with the people that I really respect and care for, and just asked them the questions like, you know me, you know the skills I have. How can I add value? And I think when you add that to the kind of personal nature of work, I think it builds a sense of trust. I think it builds, like, I feel invested in it with them. I don't ever want to be seen as someone that kind of feeds off it, or, these are my clients. I don't even consider them as clients. They're just, like, they happen to pay me money to do stuff. But actually, what I really adore about them is their brilliance. Like, they have so much brilliance, and they're all trying to achieve something, and maybe they need some help to do that.
It's amazing that how egoless your response. You said something today. I think it was during the end speech where it was about halfway through the day. You were talking about the best ideas that I have come from the room, and you're not owning those. Yeah, and I think that's amazing to be able to. I think a lot of the leadership people that I follow and listen to is about that, owning the fact that you have skills, right? That you're bringing something to the party, otherwise no one would be paying you to do what you do, right? But understanding that they have skills too, and that there are things that you haven't thought of and perspectives that you've got, and it's during that journey that your skill is to lead them through that journey. And I think that that's really fascinating.
Like really listen, like really intentionally listen to like what are the problems they're trying to solve. Think about like what I can bring to that, and then join some dots, and then say quite openly, here's some stuff.
Yes.
Here's some stuff I can do or I've done for other people without any expectation. And also like, it's just things I can be doing better. Like that kind of inner critic, that wanting of feedback. I think probably what I've had to work on over the years is how do you balance that high critique of self, what often can come across as humility, with also a confidence. Like, I'm 10 years into doing this now. It turns out I know some stuff. Yeah. And I think I still find that deeply uncomfortable. But I think going out on my own over the last 18 months, I've had to really be like, no, like, I know what I'm doing. I don't know the answer, but I certainly can I can facilitate a conversation. I can meet someone where they're at. I can deliver some stuff that I've and I think that gives you levity to play with everything that we do. I don't ever go in being like, I know, you need to know what I know. It's more.
It's collaborative, right? It's kind of meeting of minds. Yeah, I think it's amazing the things that are going on in this industry and the space and the people that we share.
Just they're great people, and I think often the best people, when they're really trying to do something that has such like purpose and such intent, it takes time. So they need support to do that. And I think that is it's a privilege of a role, just to kind of give them the space to think about how do we keep going? How do they, what do they need to do? How do they need to turn it up? To play in the background, I will forever be happy with.
So I'm going to ask you one final question, which is, if you could, and this is going to be a big one, right? So you're going to get a minute to think about this and work at But if you could give one piece of advice to the people in this industry, so not necessarily around any of the other areas you talk, but if you could give one piece of advice to this industry in the next sort of 2 years in their career progression, what would you ask them to do, or what would you tell them? Where would you tell them to look?
Really, actually, quite easily, I would say all the answers are within you. I think too often we spend time on learning things and looking at others, and actually start with the journey of exploration around yourself. Understand who you are, what's important to you, the kind of the strongly held beliefs that you hold. Start to put all of that out on the table and really look at, is it serving you? Where is it playing out? And I think if you can get really genuinely curious about you, and I think we use the term of like self-awareness, really kind of like that's deep work.
Yeah.
It's deep work to understand how we react to something, the things that trigger us, to understand what success looks like. And that's where I'd encourage people to start. Because once you know yourself, you can then start to play with how you show up in different contexts.
Yeah.
But if you don't, if you're constantly in that state of reaction, you're only ever going to react to what's in front of you. So that would be where I would encourage everyone to start, is like a deep, deep look at yourself and do some work around that. And then who do you want to be? How do you want to show up? That comes later.
That's pretty concise as a response, in all fairness.
Yeah.
So where do we find the Aunty Treacle podcasts? Where do we...
It's on all major platforms, Spotify, what are the other ones? Apple, Amazon. And we are on LinkedIn. We have a website, www.auntytreacle.com. You can send a question at ask@auntytreacle.com. So yeah, or just drop me a note.
I might start just sending questions in. Just maybe.
It's like Friday morning for me is like coffee, open the inbox, see what's come in. And
Well, I think that's quite exciting.
it's a lovely little treat when actually someone feels safe enough to think that's come up this week. What can I
You're doing a session here, though, right? There is a...
go live. Well, we're not live recording. We are live working through the structure of it. So we want people to bring what feels sticky, what feels difficult, what feels challenging. I really believe that all the answers are already in the room. So I think it'll be fun. It's always fun. Heck, it's an experiment, right? There is no such thing as perfect when it comes to that. But hopefully everyone walks away with something. Either we're big on like solutions, like something they can go and try, or sanity. I've tried all that. And I think it comes down to those two things. Like sometimes if we crowdsource options and we've tried all those things, then maybe the problem's not with us. That's okay.
I think that's a lovely way to end. Maybe that is not the problem with us. Unless...
All that.
Yeah.
Also, no,
yeah. Right. You're not going to end the way Stuart, I know, is going to end his session. It's going to involve an elephant. It's definitely going to stick in his head. Yeah. Does he tell you about the puns he puts into our meetings? So all of our meetings are like diorama, die hard, live fast and die hard. Every meeting I get has a pun with my name in it.
It's an enigma. He's a pun-based enigma. It's part of the joy. And sometimes I'm like, oh God. Right, but...
Yeah. He's awesome. He is awesome. Oh, thank you so much for joining. Well, stay.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you very much.